I remember that night very clearly. It was raining lightly on the dormitory steps of West Point Academy. I sit alone. In hand is an unstamped letter, addressed to Mother, with a single sentence. I'm sorry. No one knows. Behind the decision to voluntarily withdraw from one of the most prestigious military schools in the United States is an internal investigation. No for cheating. Not for the score. But because I refused to sign the false report. Just to protect a man who was about to be promoted to lecturer. I reported the incident to my superiors. And I was summoned to a closed meeting. No lawyer. No mental health support. No one to stand by. Cadet Walsh, said an officer, you shouldn't cause trouble. We're training leaders, not whistleblowers. I left West Point in almost complete silence. No one to see off. No one asked me why. And my mother, she couldn't hide her disappointment. Not everyone is born to be a general, my child. There are people who should just be supporters. I nodded, but inside is a small smoldering fire. I did not leave the army. I just turned down a path that no one in my family had ever thought of. Secret Tactical Analysis Force, operating under the Military Security Agency. No badge. No ceremony. Just black screen. Coordinates and anonymous calls. Every day I work from 4 a.m. Read thousands of lines of radio signal data. Some came from what the press called non-existent areas. But I never told. Even when my sister Erica was named Best Student of the Year. Even as my father raised his glass to praise the son who kept his oath to fight. I remained silent. Standing at the end of the table in a simple black dress, no one looked at her. I don't need the limelight. I just want to. Someone asked me, what are you really living for? But that never came. And then, one day I got a call from an unknown number. Just one sentence. Erica is getting promoted at Fort Campbell. The family wants you to come and attend. But please, don't wear anything out of the ordinary. I looked at the phone screen and laugh. They still think I'm a shadow in the glory party. Little did they know. I was about to enter a room that would silence everyone. I arrived at Fort Campbell on a mild sunny afternoon, brought exactly 2 sets of clothes and an old leather bag. No uniforms. No documents. No trace. Just a normal guest at my sister's grand promotion ceremony. Security gate scans card. The soldier on duty looked at me with calm eyes. Don't recognize me. No need to realize. What I did doesn't exist in the system for normal people. I stood in front of the family home, once a warm home, now a trophy room. On the wall is a long row of picture frames. The eldest brother in naval uniform. Erica among the Marines. My father, the day he received the Medal of Honor. And me? There is only one picture. Is a picture of me at age 8, wearing a floral dress, short hair, not smiling. My mother looked at me like a tenant. You're back, she said without hugging or asking. I nodded. Like a survival reflex already installed in the blood. There was no room for questions at dinner that night. Erica talks about the command plan. Father talks about Middle East strategy. I chuckled when they mentioned my civilian job. Something no one knew, nor did anyone want to know. Where do you work? The Ministry of Education. My mother asked, her voice light. I replied, close to it. And no one asked more. I know well. People don't want to know the truth. Just want to maintain their image of you. And in the family picture they kept, I was the blank. Do not color. Don't butt in. The next morning, the promotion ceremony began. The conference room is like a military cathedral. Seats are divided by rank. Solemn banner. Flags are flown in a special ceremony. I sat in the last row quietly. No name. No function. No role. And then, Erica's voice rang out in the microphone. And the biggest thing I learned in the military is to know how to stay away from those who have betrayed the honor of the uniform. The whole room fell silent. No one turned back. But I know. They know who she's talking about. I just smiled. Because what she didn't know was, I didn't need to be on stage to be seen. Just one person standing behind that curtain walking towards me. The sound of boots echoed steadily down the carpeted hallway. A man in military uniform entered, tall, stern-faced, with close-cropped silver hair. No one knows him. General Hammond. Eastern Special Forces commander. A man whose every appearance makes the whole base stand up. But this time, he did not go straight to the stage. He stopped, right in front of where I'm sitting. I still bowed my head. No response. No facial expression adjustment. Like this is not an event for me. But he did not ignore it. "Dear General Walsh," he said loudly, his voice as firm as hammering stakes into the floor of the room. "It's an honor to meet you again." I looked up. No one in my family knows that name. The whole room seemed to freeze. Erica squeezed the microphone so tightly that the sound distorted in the speaker. My mother coughed slightly. My father leaned forward as if he had misheard. No one said. Just eyes. From front to back, from left to right. I don't need a uniform. No badge required. No need for stage. A greeting. From the right person. Right on time. Enough to permanently change the balance in that room. General Hammond didn't stop there. He held out his hand in a completely military manner. I stood up and returned the salute. Quickly. Neatly and as ordered. No one dared to speak up. Not a single arm clapped. But no need. Because there are moments that don't need applause. Just the right silence. The silence was so heavy that it shook the bones of those who thought they knew who you were. I sat back down, breathed steadily. Erica continued speaking, but her words are now just echoes behind me. Every word she said was reflected by the eyes of the officers who were sneaking glances towards me. What about me? I don't look up anymore. I was looking down at an envelope. Was just quietly stuffed into my coat pocket. Just as Mr. Hammond shook hands. It has no sender name. No stamp. There is only one line. Internal scan. Third time report closed. I know that format. And I know the only person in the house who has access to that newsletter is Erica. I left the promotion ceremony before the party started. No one stopped me. No one goes with either. I returned to my room near the base, closed the door, and put the envelope on the table as if it were glowing. The smudged encryption symbols on the corner of the paper made my heart skip a beat. I've seen that kind of thing before 4 years ago, during an internal investigation near the Afghan border. I pulled out the paper. Just a few lines. Trident Campaign Data Manipulation Report, December 2018. Attached. Duplicate login verification string from internal device ID. No need to add anything. I know. Erica used unauthorized access to modify the data. Data that I then in the tactical processing group was forced to take responsibility for, to protect the unit's honor. I remember that meeting clearly. My superiors asked me to take a break for 6 months. No press. No excuses. For the common good, they said. I agree. Because I think the person who did wrong will correct himself. I was wrong. And now 4 years later I get the proof back. Sent by the person himself. Somehow. Erica is calling for help. Or pushing me into a post-deletion to get her off the hook. I don't know why. Just know, this is no longer personal. A falsified internal report. If leaked, it will drag down an entire strategic unit to reorganize. I looked out the window. The base lights were still on all night. The young soldiers were still jogging in the yard. No one knows. Just one data error can kill an entire team in the field. And I don't forget. Had a disastrous mission failure that year. When the locator signal leads the task force into the wrong area. 2 people died in battle. I never knew why. Until now. Is it not a system error? But by one person, for the purpose of keeping a reputation? I looked at the paper one last time. No investigation warrant. No requirements. Just a fragment of memory sent back. No explanation. No apology. I tore open the envelope. Burn in the sink. Leave no trace. But like fire, there are things you think have burned down, just waiting for the wind to rise again to ignite. And I know, that wind is coming from within Intelligence Command. I returned to Fort Bragg the next morning with an old security badge, one that many people thought I had destroyed. But I didn't cancel. I never withdrew from the battlefield completely. I just retreated from the light to work in the dark. The Intelligence Command's control room as usual. Biometric scanner. The cold faces of people trained to show no emotion. And a familiar line on the wall. Victory comes not from strength, but from understanding before the enemy strikes. I logged into my old system. The code was not deleted. A small administrative error, or maybe an untouchable right that no one dares to touch. I found a backup copy of the Trident campaign report. An original, before it was manipulated. I compared two versions. Only a few lines of code were changed. But they are enough to direct an entire platoon to the wrong coordinates, where there is no satellite signal. They were ambushed. 2 dead, 1 missing. I thought it was a system error. Now I know that is human error. Among the dead were Sergeant Miguel Hartz. He was the one who covered for me on my first mission in Yemen. He once said, "Surviving does not make us stronger. It makes us indebted to those who have fallen." And I owed him the truth. I send the reference to an internal encrypted communication channel. No name included. Only one label. Trident Operation Reassessment Request Designation A. Hartz, missing, not recorded correctly. I know this is going to cause a stir. I know. I'm going to be summoned. But this time, I do not intend to be silent. Because silence last time killed someone. When I walked out of the office, it was just starting to rain lightly. The rain was just like the day I left West Point. But this time, not that I give up, but I'm coming back. For a reason no one can refuse. I once withdrew to protect others from scandal. Now I'm back to defend the truth. Even though the one I face is my own blood. That afternoon I went to my father's house. Not to say hello. Not to talk about family either. I came because there was a guy in there who taught me how to shoot. But never taught me how to protect the truth from my own family. My father opened the door. He was wearing an old shirt, coffee in hand, eyes tired. No longer the stern officer I remember. But a father. Just learned that his daughter might be exposed in the middle of the command council. "What are you here for?" he asked, without turning around. I don't beat around the bush. "Do you know about the Trident report?" He put down the cup. A long time later he replied, "I knew there was a problem. But I thought you chose to stay silent. So I didn't say anything." I smiled slightly. My silence does not mean I forgive. And now he asked. I need the truth. Not to put anyone down. Just let the dead be called by their proper names. My father went to the bookcase. He took out an envelope, thin, faded, stamped, top secret, not for circulation. Inside is copy of initial investigation report, not yet entered into the system. I looked at the handwriting of the chief dispatcher. Investigation findings are on hold at the request of senior internal staff. In charge, Erica Walsh. I kept it because I knew you would come back one day, he said. I'm not protecting Erica. I'm just waiting for you to be strong enough to not be crushed by the truth. I looked at him. For the first time in years. I don't see an officer in you. But as a man, also caught between honor and love. I put the file in my bag. Then stand up. I will turn it in. No one can stop me. He did not stop. Just a quick word. Be careful. Those in power fear most those who know too much without having to prove anything. I walked out the door. It was dark. The wind is cold. But in my heart is light. Not the light of victory, but it is the first light of a man returning to himself. I used to think silence was a sign of weakness, but now I know. Silence can also be a knife. The only difference is, this time I'm the one holding it. I took the entire file to the Office of Internal Intelligence Investigation. No appointment. No pre-send. Just put it on the table, just as the officer in charge returned from lunch. He recognized me immediately. Colonel Walsh. I thought you were discharged. I did not answer. Just push the document towards him. Start on page 4. Access code is 56 Echo Black. No need for more words. My presence and that code was enough to open the Level 3 data gate. On the screen, lines of text ran along the report code. Operation Trident. Suspicion of data manipulation. Personnel involved. Walsh. The officer looked at me, his eyes suddenly changing. From polite to focused. No longer a guest. I became the one who reopened the case. I need to retrieve all internal logs for that week, I said. I was suspended to protect someone. Now I need to know, am I being taken advantage of? He nodded. No further questions asked. A few hours later, a system diagram appeared. The accesses match Erica's ID. Edits. Even the extracted code is not authorized. And finally, one detail that took my breath away. The last validator in the system is me, or rather my ID, was used for authentication. I clenched my fists. She didn't just fix the mistakes. She impersonated me to clean them up. I walked out of the office into the cold afternoon breeze. The footsteps seemed to fall heavier. Not because of anger, but because I realized I kept quiet to save Erica's honor, and she used that silence to cover up her mistakes. That evening Erica called me, not from personal numbers, which from some military code means this call is being monitored. I need to see you, she said. No anger, no apology, just urgent. I was silent for a few seconds, then replied, no, you will meet me at the General Coordinator's office at 8 a.m., and I will tell the truth not to me, but with people who can remove your rank if necessary. I hung up, and for the first time in years, no more shaking, no more fear of losing your place in the family, because I understood blood can bind bloodlines, but only the truth retains the human part. The next morning I walked into the small conference room on the third floor, usually used for tactical training, but today is for an informal confrontation. There are 4 people in the room. I, Erica, a neutral legal officer, and a representative from the Operations Coordination Bureau. No media, no public profile. There was only testimony, and the unblinking gaze of the observer through the one-way glass. Erica was 2 minutes late. She wore a formal uniform, hat in hand, face stiff. But the eyes are different. No longer the Erica I knew. No longer confident, no longer arrogant. There is only one person left trying to keep his reputation from collapsing before everyone's eyes. I said nothing. No greeting. No accusation. Just put the printed documents on the table. Then say, I know exactly what this is. She sat down and flipped through it. It took just 7 seconds to realize. There was no denying it. I continued. You don't need to admit your guilt to me. But I have to be clear, why did I do that? For who? For fame? Or because you thought she would continue to stay silent like before? She looked at me. Red eyes. Not for shame, but because of fear. I didn't know they would lose the coordinates, she said softly. I just thought, if I tweaked it a little, the report would be better. I need it to be approved for a regional command position. I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I don't move. Just ask. What about me? Do you know when you use my ID? She was suspended without pay, almost kicked out of the intelligence force. She was silent. Clenched fist. The forensic officer nodded and took notes. No defense. There is nothing left to do. At the end of the session, I stood up. No handshake. Just say. Honor does not come from standing on a stage. It comes from how you handle mistakes, even when no one is clapping anymore. I turned and left the room. And don't look back. But I know the hearing is not over. Not there. But at dinner tonight. Between people with the same surname. With questions, no records are needed to judge. That evening, I returned to my mother's house. Time to eat. The whole family is seated. My father quietly poured wine. My mother cuts the grilled meat. My eldest brother nodded faintly. And Erica sat across from me, her hands under the table, not touching the food. No one mentioned the hearing this morning. But no one needs reminding. The air was as thick as fog after a storm. My mother was the first to break the silence. Daughter, I heard you met General Hammond the other day. I nodded. He greeted me with his real rank. The answer made the whole table silent for another beat. Not out of surprise, but because it forced them to confront something they had been ignoring for 10 years. My father looked at me. No blame. There was only a slow acknowledgement in his eyes. I don't need you to say sorry. I just need you to not turn away again. Erica didn't look at me. But I know you're listening. Knowing that even though there are no official consequences today, you still have to report to the official command tomorrow, and my testimony is part of that. I chewed each piece of meat slowly. Think of how this family used to be proud of the title. But forget, honor cannot be labeled with medals. Mom put the knife down. Small voice but audible. Mom doesn't understand why you have to make a big deal out of it. I know Erica was just trying to take a chance. Did I have to make my brother almost lose everything? I put down my chopsticks. Look up at her. My mother once said, not everyone is born to shine. Mom was right. But what mother was wrong about was thinking that people who don't shine should be silent when they see darkness. The whole table went silent. No one said anything. I don't need anyone on my side. I don't need to win. I just need them to know. I'm still there. Not gone. Not faded. And it's not easy to get buried alive under misdirected praise. I stood up and poured more water into the glass. Erica, I said, not looking at her. If you want to say anything more tomorrow, you know how to find me. I will not run away. I will not speak for you anymore. This time your voice. It has to be real. I turned away. And for the first time no goodbyes needed. Because I know, in this house, not everyone needs to stay to be accepted. Sometimes leaving at the right time is the last remaining love. The next day, I received an email from an encrypted address of the Northeast Regional Command. Simple title: Request to share on Operation Trident Domain Strategy Briefing. I knew right away this was not an investigation, but it is an invitation. From those who want to turn lessons from past mistakes into strategies for the next generation. The conference was held at a regional training center not far from Fort Bragg. No communication. No video recording. There is only one soundproof glass room, soft light. And 42 people sitting in a circle, all of them senior strategic officers and regional commanders. I walked in. No uniform. Wearing only a white shirt, rolled up sleeves. And carrying a small hard drive in his pocket. The moderator gave the signal to start. We don't need technical details. We need to understand what kept someone like you silent for so long. I do not present as a reporter. I don't speak technical language. I tell, as a soldier who survived. Misunderstood. I chose to remain silent so that others could speak. I'm talking about Miguel Hartz. About the wrong position. About the coordinates piece I believed was a server error. About the night I lay in the base. Someone knocked on the door and said. 2 people did not return. No one said anything when I told them. Just the eyes, serious, concerned, and understanding. We train soldiers to be ready to die, I said. But sometimes, the scariest thing is not death, but to survive a lie. I stopped. There was no applause. No need. An old officer stood up. Silver collar, eyes deep as mountain rocks. He said only one sentence. They won't put your name on the stone tablet, but we will remember. And from now on no one in this room is allowed to forget that there are generals who don't need positions. After the meeting I left. In hand is just a small card. If you ever want to teach, let us know. We need people like you, people who are not afraid to say what everyone else wants to hide. I put the card in my pocket. Don't laugh. Don't cry. There is only one thing I am sure of. I came out of the shadows not to be glorified, but to prove that living truthfully is more precious than medals. I returned to my apartment late at night. The room was as before. Neat, silent, without a trace of the outside world. But in my heart, everything is no longer old. I sat down at my desk, turn on laptop, open a forgotten folder file. Letters never sent. Inside were letters that were never sent. Some write to mothers, some for Miguel. And there is one written for myself. I opened the last letter. Old typeface with date in bottom corner. The day I left West Point. Colleen. If one day you read these lines again, that means I survived. That means you chose to remain silent so that others can continue to have illusions about right and wrong. And that means I'm still scared because they never asked why. I sat still. Not read all. No need. Because I am no longer the person who wrote that letter. I closed the folder. Remove the USB from the machine. Throw it in the drawer. Not because I want to forget, but because in the end, I lived without needing it to prove anything anymore. The next morning, I walked into the tactical analysis office like every other day. But that day there was someone waiting. A young female officer about 26, eyes full of respect. Are you Colonel Walsh? I nodded. I've heard about you. You were the one who didn't choose to go on TV when it all broke out. I choose to teach. I looked at the young girl. I saw in her eyes something I used to have. The thirst for justice. Distrust of the system. and the belief that one can make a difference. I gave her a small print. Write only one line. The truth needs no protection. It just needs someone who isn't afraid to stand by it when it gets shot down. She took it, saying nothing. Just nod. I went back to my desk. Look at the computer screen showing the line of code. The work is still data, coordinates, probabilities. But this time, I am no longer the one hiding behind numbers. I am a survivor of the untold story. And now I have told it, through my silence. 2 weeks after the strategy meeting, I received a strange email. No title. No signature. Just one attachment. An excerpt from the minutes of a closed-door meeting between regional commanders. The content is very clear. Proposed to add Colonel Colleen Walsh to the regional strategy faculty. Reason, the ability to analyze moral thinking in nonlinear warfare at the human level. I read it 3 times. Not surprising, but because I never imagined that one day my name would be written with the word morality. In the military, it is something that is often considered a luxury, because the mission is always greater than the emotion. Victory always weighs more than conscience. But maybe not forever. My first lecture was to a class of young officers. Simple classroom. No LED display. There is only a whiteboard and a few rows of old plastic chairs. I stood in front of them, no slides needed. There is only one pre-written sentence. Tell me about the battle no one saw, but it changed you forever. A young male officer raised his hand. How to tell? No gunshots, no deaths. I smiled. So you have never sat still at the funeral of a comrade, when I know it was my fault that put them in that position. The whole class was silent. I tell. No sensitive details. No name. Just the truth, told in a low voice with well-timed pauses. With eyes that have witnessed the consequences of a single line of wrong code. A wrong coordinate. A little lie to keep a good record. After class, a young female officer approached me. She said softly, I used to think if you want to be a good person, you shouldn't join the army. But now I think it is because we want to keep our humanity that we need to be here. I nodded. Say nothing. Just remember her face. That night, I wrote in my diary. They don't need to know who I am on paper. Just know. I've been there when the right thing and the easy thing no longer coincide. And I chose not to let anyone else take the burden. I am not a general. I am not a hero. I'm just a human being after all. The following month, I accepted an invitation to attend an international military conference. Topic: Ethics in Modern Command. A topic that no one had ever invited someone like me to before, a former officer with no medals or public position. But this time, I was assigned to speak right after Colonel Harris, who had commanded counterintelligence operations in Africa. I am not shaking. I don't need to prepare a long speech. Because I will not speak in speech. I will tell a story. On the podium, I said only 3 things. The first, loyalty does not mean blind obedience. It is to keep the system from devouring itself because of the silence of those who know. Monday, not everyone who wears a uniform is a soldier. And not everyone who is stripped of their uniform is no longer a keeper of the line between right and wrong. And finally, I didn't come here to tell a story. I came to talk about a time I kept quiet, and someone else died. If you think that has nothing to do with command, then you have never really commanded. The whole hall was silent. Not a cough. Not a single phone screen lights up. As I left the stage, a commander from Israel gently took my hand. You just said something that hundreds of officers have never dared to admit. I just nodded. Not because of pride, but because it's something that should have been said a long time ago. That afternoon, I stood alone in the glass corridor looking down at the academy campus. There were young officers practicing shooting, shouting, and sweating. I miss myself 20 years ago. Hot-tempered, idealistic, believes that justice always wins. I am not that person anymore. But I did not lose my ideals. I just realized. To keep our ideals, sometimes we have to accept giving up everything, even our position in our own home. That evening I called Erica. No debate. Not to mention. Just say one sentence. I told you everything. She kept nothing for herself anymore. There was a long silence on the other side. Then she just said, for the first time in my life, I don't know whether to thank you or apologize. I smiled. No need. I just want you to understand. The truth doesn't kill us. Only silence does that. 2 months after my conference speech, I received a handwritten letter. Sent from a military postal address, handwriting stiff but even. Sender, Erica Walsh. I opened the letter and read it slowly. Not out of surprise. But in every line I see a sister I have never truly met. Colleen. I used to think I was strong. But actually I'm just good at covering up cracks with medals. When you were silent that year, I thought you were weak. Now I know I am the weak one. I do not ask you for forgiveness. I just want you to know, since you told the truth. I started practicing breathing again. With my own breath. No longer borrowing someone else's name. I folded the letter. Don't cry. Don't laugh. Just sit for a long time. There is no hatred in the heart. No victory. Only silence. A kind of peace without music. A kind of reconciliation that doesn't require hugging. I do not reply to letters. Instead, I sent Erica a notebook. Drum. On the cover I handwrote. Write what I never dared to tell. Don't let anyone read it. Just so I can be true to myself. No signature. No message. Because I know, forgiveness doesn't come from a word. But from our no need for apology to move on. The following month, I was invited to teach formally at the Joint Command Academy. I'm not going alone. Sitting in the front row were a few people I thought would never come back to me. My father, old but wearing the same old suit, said nothing, but nodded as I stepped up to the podium. My mother, quiet but eyes no longer a void. When I looked down the aisle, she didn't turn away like she did when I walked out of West Point. And Erica, where plain clothes sit at the back of the room. No hiding. No hiding. I didn't talk about tactics in that lecture. I just asked the class one question. Who here has ever kept silent so as not to destroy the image of others? Half the class raised their hands. I said, good. Now who thinks that silence is worth it? All hands down. And in their eyes, I saw myself 10 years ago. One person once thought, silence is the only way to survive. The closing ceremony of the command course took place in a small hall. Not busy. No loud applause. There was only soft lighting, straight rows of chairs, and a name tag placed in front of each student. I was not on the podium that day. I sat in the back row, the same place I had sat at Erica's investiture. But this time, no one ignored me. No more strange eyes. No more rushed introductions as if I were an extra. A student stepped up and gave his graduation speech. He said, we were taught tactics, we were disciplined. But the biggest thing we learned is that every good commander know when to speak up, and always have to listen to a very real silence. He turned to me. No names. No need. The whole hall looked on. And I know, even though no one pinned a rank on my shoulders today, but what I carry is something that cannot be taken off. After the ceremony, I left the base again. This time, not to leave, but to begin in a different way. I came to a new land, where the first military ethics training center in the United States was being built. Not because I'm the best, but because I am the one who survived something everyone else silently endured. In the new office, there is a picture hanging on the wall. Not my photo, but it was an unknown soldier writing something in the middle of the trenches. Below is a small line. The bravest thing we do is not to fight, but to write down the truth when no one else dares. The bravest thing we can do is not to fight, but to dare to write the truth when no one else dares. And if you're still reading this, maybe you've kept something inside for too long. Fact. A memory. A wound that no one understands. I'm not here to tell you what to say. I just want you to know. You are not alone. And your truth still has a place in this world. If this story makes you think of someone who was once silent, or make you feel like you just understood something, please leave a line. Just one line. Me too. Because of that saying. Could be someone else's silent survival.